Okay.
Got it.
Go ahead, Deb.
Oh, I was just waiting to see Andrea's beautiful face. All right, so we're here with Andrea, and there she is. Look how beautiful she is. So Andrea and I work together. We're coworkers at we're flight attendants, and Andrea has been a flight attendant for 25 years. We also want to tell her, also congratulations. She's also celebrating 15 years of breast cancer survivorship too. So what a great, event to celebrate. But we're here. Andrea, she's a phenomenal woman. The one thing about being a flight attendant is you sit on the jump seat and you get to know somebody pretty well in those few days that you spend together. And as soon as I met Andrea, we instantly connected, and I saw like, oh my God, what an amazing woman she is. And I told her about this podcast we were starting, and said, you absolutely have to come on our podcast and share your wisdom, your knowledge, and your inspiration. She has so many inspiring things that she has shared with me. So I could not wait for Andrea to join us here and to share those things with us and the rest of the women that are watching our podcast and listening in. So
you're making it sound more calm than what it was, because when you reached out to me, you're like, oh my gosh, I got the best person for our podcast.
Oh my gosh. We had so much fun when we flew together, and then we went for coffee, and then we just like went from one topic to another topic to another topic. And it was just great. So, when you have an instant connection with somebody and you become friends and you're like, this is it. And so I said, sure, I'll do it, whatever. Anything to see you guys succeed, because I think it's a great idea what you have. And I think it's going to be wonderful for many people. So I was a yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And we're glad you were too. So,
yeah.
Gina, go ahead. You want to start with like I know we have some questions here.
Well, yeah. So why don't we start with your story, Andrea? I mean, you've got quite the story with being a cancer survivor, and then I heard that you climbed mountains, but it took you kind of some obstacles to get there. So
Struggles?
you start talking about your story.
Well, you know what? We're all climbing mountains. They're all just different terrain. That's what I tell people all the time. My mountain's no different than anyone else's as far as that. It's the same concept. We're all just trying to, navigate and get through life. And so we all have different mountains that we're climbing. Almost 15 years ago, so I'm celebrating 15 years here pretty soon. I'm so excited about that. I'm so grateful. I got diagnosed with cancer. That particular time, I was supposed to be going to Nepal with some other coworkers, and well, I didn't get to do that. It was a different mountain. And on my daughter's birthday, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And then the journey just kind of took off from there. And what I do know and realize is our darkest time and our worst thing in our life makes us the best you. It really changes you, and it makes you who you are. So there's no why me. If I said why me, I would be saying, why not Debbie? Why not Gina? Why not my sister? Why not? So yeah. I never said why me, because if I said why me, it means why not someone else? It's my journey.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
That was it. Yeah. And then go ahead, Deb.
No, it reminds me of like the things that we go through make us who the people we are at the end of those journeys too. Even like the journey that you're talking about. Like I think we were talking about that. If it wasn't some of the stuff you go through, you wouldn't be the person you are today.
No, definitely not. I never want it again. Never want it again. But I have like no regrets that I went through it. I really have zero regrets, because you really find out what you're capable of, your strength. And, I thought it was funny that one of your questions was something about what was my aha moment of turning 50. And literally all I could think of is I slid in sideways. It kind of hit me because after I had breast cancer, I had to like kind of accept aging a little quicker. So I basically slid in sideways and said, well, here you go. You're in the second half of your life. How do you want to live it? What kind of goggles are you putting on? And how are you going to do this? So I slid in sideways.
I love that. I love that. Did you find that like through your journey with breast cancer that um like finding like positives was a good way of dealing with some of the challenges you had with that? I mean, how did you get through that? I mean, that's just an amazing walk you've taken, and what could you
Yeah.
offer to other people who might be facing that?
Well, I think the biggest thing to navigate through it that I found out is that when I physically could not do things, and like from chemotherapy infusions or whatever, when I physically was in bed and could not do stuff, we have to learn to pull from our mind. And when your mind is messed up and you're emotional and you're a mess, then that's when you get out and you walk. And by the grace of God or your whoever again that your universe that you deal with, but my God, but I was able not to get everything at once. And it was really weird because you go through stuff and we think we're getting everything at once. But if you dig deep enough, you can probably find something else to pull the rope and hang on and tie that knot. And so when I physically could not do stuff, I listened to things and only positive things and healing verses. And I was working out in my head. I
Mm,
know that sounds crazy, but in my mind, I was running. I was running a marathon. And so then on those days, mostly appointment days, those were the days that you're emotional, you're just kind of like a roller coaster. So you just pull from one and the other, and you pull from your resources, and you find those resources as we're aging that we had that experience along the way. So we pull from that. And that brings you to where we are now as women, and we're all faced with stuff. It's again, and everybody's got a mountain, but whether it be lupus, whether it be MS, or whether it be breast cancer, we're at an age where things are happening. And
yeah.
I was telling Debbie this. I was telling Debbie, it's not if it's like when it happens, it's going to happen. It's just life. We have those battles. So make sure who you have in your corner and who is in your tribe and who you are spending your time and soul to. You better make sure they're the right people that's going to help you out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that how you mentioned your support group and you find your tribe. And I think sometimes in our darkest hour, we really find out who those people really are, and extremely grateful for them. And they're in your life for a reason. I believe that they really are in your life for a reason. When you're going through your darkest hour and they're the ones that are there for you, you figure out that they're the ones that are there for you to help, to encourage you and help pull you through. And that's what's so amazing about humanity. And that's another thing I think also with women, like especially in our age, being there for each other, to support each other, creating this community as one big tribe for us, because we're all go through, like Andrea said, is when it happens to you. It's not if, when something happens to you. And being there for each other, especially at this phase of our life, being there for each other, because we pretty much are the only ones to understand, when our, either kids leave the home, when our kids are grown, or we spent all this time taking care of someone or family. And now we're in this phase of life where it can feel lonely. It could
Yeah.
feel really lonely. Like you feel like no one else understands because again, the kids are gone and you've helped raise your husband.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that
you do. Sometimes you do. Some people do.
absolutely.
Yeah. But I do
So,
think
Yeah.
Debbie, I do think it's easier to please the world than it is to kind of like take care of yourself. we're pleasing everybody else. And this sometimes is what diseases us and makes us sick, because we don't know when to stop sometimes, and we take care of everybody else but ourselves. And that's why a community like this that you guys have developed and decided to start a podcast, it just helps people know that, like you said, they're not alone. And just kind of learning how other people navigate through it, I think, is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think for us too, in this age group, is not feeling, I don't want to use the word shame, but not being afraid to speak up that, hey, I'm going through some changes and I need to kind of talk to somebody and connect with people. Growing up, our mothers, at least my mother, she's immigrated from Eastern Europe. Any type of womanhood type of discussion was pretty much taboo.
Yeah.
And so, my mother and, my grandmother or any of those never talked about, puberty or menopause or any of that other stuff. They pretty much, when I started mentioning, symptoms to my mom, she was like, I, I, I think it's like labor. Sometimes you forget. You kind of forget how painful labor was, unless I think it was just so traumatic that you forgot how painful it was. Like, yeah, I had two kids and no big deal. But then, like, if I were to go back there today, there would be no way that I would do that again. The pain was painful, yes, with a great result. But I think my mom was just like almost gaslight, like, yeah, no, I did just fine. It wasn't a big deal. And I'm like, are you sure? Because all these symptoms are kind of bizarre. But they didn't talk about that. I think to bring it out into the open and not feel embarrassed or ashamed to talk about the changes that we're going through in this phase of life.
Yeah. Andrea, did you find that you still, because as women, I feel like there's the societal expectation on us to be the caregiver, to be there for everybody else, to do for everybody else but ourselves, like you had mentioned. Did you find that people were still having those expectations of you when you were going through your cancer treatments and that?
I think sometimes, well, for me going through that, I felt like everybody was like kind of like concerned and everything. But what happens is when you lose your hair and you lose your eyebrows and you lose all this stuff, then people are like on alert. The minute it comes back, people tend to forget what you went through, because then it's kind of like, oh, she's better. But better doesn't come for years, and
Right.
better takes a while. And I do think that, I mean, even, God bless, I had the most support from my youngest daughter. I mean, she was amazing, but she got to be a senior in high school. And then it's like, I'm still like 18 months out. And it's like, mom's got hair, mom's going to work, mom's fine. So people tend to brush it under the rug and they move on like it was like nothing. But you still live with the residual of that for years to come. So I definitely think that people, think that you're fine and they move on with it. And I have a lot of friends. I have friends that had breast cancer pregnant. I have friends that, got breast cancer later, and they also took care of a home. So there's a lot of people that was warriors. A lot of these women out here are warriors, and they're taking care of small children and adults, and they're going to work and running their business. So I think it still happens. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Andrea, some of the stuff that we talked about, I remember when we were on the jump seat, and
You're the best.
Cured in.
The time. Jump seat therapy is what they call it.
Jump seat therapy, absolutely. I remember some of the things that you've accomplished after like you said, it took a while to be okay. But some of the things that you have accomplished after that were just amazing. Of what you were telling me, how you became a life coach, talking about you started traveling by yourself. Those are the things that were just so inspiring to me. How you just took life like head on, and then you started going into other stuff. I mean, I know you were a respiratory therapist before coming. I don't know if it's before you were a flight attendant, but you became a flight attendant, and then you were discussing then how you became a life coach, and then you were talking about how you went to climb mountains in Africa and started traveling alone. For the women out there that have to get over some of the fears, I would love for you to let them know how you started doing those things by yourself, and becoming empowered and being okay with, like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I wanted to do this, and even if I'm doing it by myself.
Well, one of the things is we all want to be an expert at something with no experience. We all want to be an expert, but we don't have the experience for it. But we want to be, I mean, this Zoom, I'm like, I hate Zoom. And you're like, oh, we have technical problems. We want to be an expert, but we need the experience, but we don't want to get that experience. We just want to jump out. We want to do. I mean, I would say for anybody that wants to do all that traveling or things by themselves, to just start small. I mean, so many people live in fear because they live in guilt, and fear and guilt are hand in hand. And I found myself, after I was diagnosed, to just say, let go of all the guilt immediately. You have to, or else you're not going to heal. And it's like a mind, body, spirit thing. So you have to be willing to let go of so much before you can blossom. I know that sounds so cliche, but you can't become who you are if you're carrying that baggage. There was this, I don't even know where I heard it, where I got it. I could have made it up in the middle of the night. I don't really remember, but if you hand me a glass and it's half full, like the old saying, but just a little cup, I'm holding this cup. This cup is not heavy, right? So I'm going to hold this cup for a little bit. I'm gonna hold it a little longer. 2 days goes by and also my hand's quivering, where I'm holding on to it. You have to let it go. The longer you hold it, it doesn't matter if it's a feather, it's going to be heavy. You have to let it go. And I think that really letting go of that guilt, letting go of that fear, and saying, what do I really want? And what I really wanted is not to live in a small, confined, like, zip code or a box or a job or wherever you're at that you're wanting to expand. You just have to just take small steps. Again, if you've been a mom and you've been at home and you haven't worked, I would suggest maybe go to a local town that you find to be a beautiful little town. When you drive through, get a hotel, spend the night, just walk around and browse around by yourself and learn to love who you are alone. If you can't be alone, you are going to have a lot of problems with that. So you have to put those arrows inward instead of outward, and not feel guilty for it at our age.
That's beautiful. I love that. And it's so true.
Yeah.
To really take those little baby steps. And what movie was that? Oh, What About Bob? You gotta take baby steps.
I haven't seen that. What is that?
Oh, yeah. It's good. Bill Murray.
I have to watch it.
Baby steps. Yeah, I think it was a book about baby steps, but it was so funny. That's exactly what it reminds me of too when you said that, Gina. Yeah. But I love how, Andrea, you said, like, if you can't enjoy spending time by yourself with yourself, that goes into a whole nother thing about, like, self-love, self-acceptance, self-care. You do need to treat yourself so kindly. You need to treat yourself. Yes, you need to treat yourself the way you treat the person you love the most, because you are, believe it or not, you are the most important person to yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else. And that's how, we talk about that even when you're flying. You need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can even help anyone else. So you have to love yourself, you have to accept yourself, and you have to take care of yourself.
But Debbie, I would not sit in a jump seat and tell you, I don't like this and I don't like that. I wouldn't tell you that. I treat you different. We have to treat ourselves the way we treat our friends and the people that we just adore so much. We have a problem with that. We have a problem with treating ourselves the way we treat, one another. We'll treat you golden, but then we'll beat ourselves up. And you have to get away from, that self-negativity and all that talk, and just kind of don't allow those feelings to get in the way of, like, basic logic. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing I think Gina and I want to work on with this that we're creating here is we want to work on women accepting themselves, loving themselves, taking care of themselves. Like you said, you can't believe so in the negative self-talk. Sometimes when I encounter women and the first things that come out of their mouth is I hate my hair. I hate my this. I hate my that. I'm like, oh my, I just want to say, please, 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 speak so kindly to yourself. It is so important. And I can't stress that enough, how important. Andrea is so right about that. And where does that even come from? A lot
That's
of
the question right there. Where does it come from? And if we could get in a habit of instead of, oh, I hate my hair, say to ourselves, I deserve a change. I need a change. Like, why do we have to say we hate our makeup? Why do we have to say I hate this or I hate that about myself? Why can't we say, oh, I want to make a change? Do you have any suggestions as my friend? What do you think? We need to say we want the change, not we hate what we have, because that's just negativity that we're telling ourselves. So we need to just kind of offer ourselves a little bit more grace.
Absolutely.
A positive spin on it versus going for the negative talk all the time. I think that's
Correct.
so important.
And some of the stuff that I read and I follow, I'm big into some medical physical stuff and spirituality stuff is that your body is listening to your self-talk. Your body is listening. And there was another book that someone had mentioned. I can't remember who it was, that Body Holds the Score or something like that. And Gina and I can look into some of these books, and on our website or on our Facebook page, we put book recommendations up that have changed our life. But your self-talk, your mental diet, your body is listening to you talk about yourself like that. And when you start to assume that identity, some people loathe themselves, and you start to assume the identity that you're not worthy, you project that out, and no one else will see you that way. They won't treat you, they will only treat you the way you treat yourself. And this is so true. And you have to respect yourself. You have to, and it's not narcissism. A lot of people confuse self-love with narcissism. That is not true. In narcissism, you loathe yourself. So you make everyone believe that you're better than them. Narcissism is believing that you're better than anyone else because of such self-loathing. You have to, kind of like fake it or whatever it is. But true self-love is love, the purest form, beaming inside and then shining that light onto everyone else that you love. And that's it. I mean, yes.
Yeah. And I think, again, we're ingrained from very young girls we're taught that's selfish. You should never leave your family behind to go traveling. You should never, so even when we do those things to just go, to the next town and spend some time in the hotel, there's times where that little voice is saying, but should you be doing this? So I think it takes a lot of practice. And I love what you said, Andrea, about like just taking those little steps and like doing it a little at a time. I think it takes practice for us to be able to love ourselves and to overcome those voices that have been, those messages that have been told to us all those years.
I also think too is 50 is not what 50 was for our parents, our mother, our aunts, our grandmother. 50 is just not what it used to be. And now grandmothers don't, sit at home to take care of kids. And some people are 50 and don't have kids, and that's okay too. Nothing wrong with that. And 50 is not what it used to be. So now, everybody has to grasp that. If they were raised with someone that was like, being in Europe and everything, if you were raised around someone that kind of set those guidelines for you, then you navigate it by yourself, then you have to like figure it out because you don't have that role model. So I think that we just have to really accept the fact that 50 is just not 50 anymore. And we do it our way. We do it different than our parents did.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, totally agree on that. 100%. So true. And 50, it's changed so much. We're living longer. We're doing more things
And looking younger.
yeah, exactly.
Looking younger. I mean, there might be some help sometimes with that, some good skincare, maybe.
That's okay.
The gray
that's a whole nother
spray.
topic.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you stay looking young? That's not, but you know, we'll talk about climbing mountains today, and we'll talk about skincare another day for sure. But
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, it's just not what it used to be. And you know, 50 is very different than what, you know, our parents were, or your grandparents, or whoever raised you was. So I embrace that, and I always remind myself. I also have to remind myself that many people are not actually working on themselves. And this is kind of like a mental block for me sometimes at my age, is that I have so much awareness, and I try so hard. And I try so hard for me. I'm not trying hard for anyone else. I try hard for me. I try to do right, you know, with everything from my health, my money, you know, just a lot of stuff. And then you have to realize that not everybody's working on themselves. Some people are okay not to, and that's okay too. But that does kind of like you know, when you want to expand and you want to do something, you can't feel guilty when someone says, well, how did you get to do that, or why? You know, you live in a dream and go and being a flight attendant at 50, and people's like, but why? And people have this thing like, well, you're too old for that, you know. And you know, some people just don't want to work on themselves. I'm not that person, but I think that we have to accept that.
Mhm. And the other thing about that, what you just mentioned too, is why. It's being okay to not, you don't ask me too many opinions. We like to get approval from our family and our friends. So sometimes we kind of overseek that validation from them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you know, I want to be a flight attendant at 50. You know, you get some answers that are like, well, good luck with that. You know, if you don't, you still have a good job. Or you get like, are you sure you really should be thinking about retirement? And then it's like, still do you, like you said, Andrea, do what you want to do. And if other people, you know, are fine, if you know, like you said, some people don't want to work on themselves, or even consider a dream. We all have some kind of dream or something that we want to accomplish. You know, or just whether you believe that you could do it
Yes.
or not is another thing too. And again, we go back to why don't you believe you're worthy enough to do something different? But it's pretty much, when you are set to do something, just do it. Don't worry too much of what other people think or their opinions. That's just their opinions, and just have enough confidence to do what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that. So did you climb, which mountain did you climb in Africa?
Oh, I climbed Kilimanjaro twice. I climbed it, and you know, we want to talk about like failures. We can talk about success and failure. So I did it the first time, and I got all the way to the top, nearly to the tip top, and I got really bad altitude sickness. And my porter, he said to me, as I watched everyone go up at summit that night, and he says to me, he's like, do you have kids? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, the mountain will be here tomorrow. And I said, okay. So I went down the base camp and I waited. And when they come down, I was fine. So we go all the way back down to the start, and all the way down, I was saying, I'm going back up. I'm going back up. Like, I didn't come here to make it to almost the top. I come here to make it to the top.
Yeah.
So I finished that, and then I came back home, and I was home for 2 weeks, and someone reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to come back, if I would, you know, work out a deal with them. Okay, I'm coming back. So I set my family down and was like, by the way, I'm going back to Africa. And they're like, for what? And I'm like, I'm gonna climb the mountain again. They're like, that big mountain? It's like, Yeah, sure. It's only 19,000 feet with no oxygen. Why not? So I was just so determined. And by failing, and speaking of books, Gina, as you've written a book, but by failing, it just changed the trajectory of so much. I journaled everything, and you will not know humanity until you fail and someone lifts you up and they help you down, they mountain, and then they help rise you back up. You just don't know what it's like to have someone help you like that. And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't have been had to be carried off the mountain a little bit. Just a little bit. I didn't crawl, no, but it is definitely just as hard to come down it as it is go up. People don't realize that, but it is. And so I went back a couple weeks later, and I made it to the top, and pretty much my people that was in my group was like, "You're going too fast." I'm like, no, I mean, so I went back. I did it twice, back to back.
Amazing.
That's so amazing.
I really wanted people to understand that those hard times don't necessarily define you. You can't stay down. If you want to stay down, then it's that self-talk that puts you there. But I was not going to live that life. And I was like, I have to teach people health and wellness and tell them, I truly believe, and you as nurses believe, in body manipulation. I believe that definitely like self-talk, but I believe that if you're sick, you manipulate your body to get better. It's body manipulation. You can say, you keep doing the same thing, we know you're going to get the same results. But from the time I got sick, moving forward, all I wanted to do was change the way I was doing things to make it different, because I knew if I didn't make those changes, I was going to, probably get sick again, maybe with something else. But yeah, so you have to be ready to fall. You have to be ready to crawl back down and get back up and let people help you. That was the other thing, letting someone help me down when I couldn't make it.
That's amazing. I love how you said that. That was like having some surrender there by letting them help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you had that, but at the same time, you had that vision that you would still make it, that you would still do it.
Yes. I feel like, again, we can own guilt, fear, illness. We can own a lot of stuff, failure, and it really is your choice. And there's just so many things that people have that they're handed in life that's not fair. And then sometimes somebody get on the plane and you'll help them and they'll have the best attitude, and you're just melting, and you're like, wow, how are they living like that? And you know what? There really is not going to be a comfortable way if you don't make those changes. In my eyes, I don't think so anyway. I have to be positive because like I don't live in that space.
It's one of the things we wanted to ask you is what advice we would like this podcast and what Gina and I are doing, yes, are for women 50 and older, and we're hoping that younger women will join in because we're paving the way for them. And we want them to see how wonderful it'll be when they get here. Whether they be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or whatever it is. Share some advice for women that are under 50. What are some of the things that, looking back now, that you could give to your 20 or 30-year-old self, the advice that you could give to your 20, 30, or 40-year-old self?
What I would do, well, I'll tell you what, flying with the younger generation is good and bad, but we end up doing this at work. We end up telling those younger girls this, it's going to happen fast. It happens faster than you think. But for me, I will tell you, save more money. Start saving and thinking about it. Don't think that just because you're 25, you have to start saving because it will get there faster than you think. And also, I feel like it's important, Of course, skincare, again, that always comes up for 50 and plus, but take care of your skin, and take care of your health. I mean, I do fly with people that are working in the ground, and I say to myself, wow, like you have to take care of your health young, because if you don't take care of your health young, then you're going to be 50 and wish that you did, because now your joints are going to hurt because you didn't take care of them, or your skin because you drank too much or smoked too much. I'm not saying you can't. Look, I'm cool with that, but I'm just saying, like, just it's going to come fast, and it's a privilege. It is such a privilege, and you want to come in to a different age group far healthier than just ignoring all those signs because you think you got time, and that's not true. It starts early on.
Right. And I think bridging that gap with the younger generation to flying with younger people to I want, sometimes I see, the younger and the older generation, might not feel like they're on the same page with stuff, but just being very, very loving and very loving and open with them. So a lot of my younger flight attendants, I have a lot of friends who are younger too. A couple of my girlfriends, they're in their, my friends range between the ages of 22 to, 72. And just don't feel so restricted in just connecting with women just your age. Reach out to the younger generation, reach out even to the older generation. And
absolutely. Be friends with people that are younger, and the younger people need to be friends with people that are older. I really believe that.
Yeah. And I've seen some, women like my age, not treat the younger generation as well as they should too. And then that kind of energy and it kind of bounces back. If you're acting a certain way towards the younger generation, of course they're going to be very, defensive and act a certain way towards you. It's just that be very loving with your words with them too. I know we were there I look back now in my 20s and 30s, I'm like, oh my God, I was, I Gina, you and I worked together in our early 20s. And like, you know what I'm saying? We were in a totally different headspace, and now if I remember looking at women in their 50s when I was 20, I'm like, oh my God, they seem so old or blah, blah, blah. But I remember now looking back, like I should have been more respectful. I should have been, with some older women and stuff. And now I'm now projecting that towards the younger generation, and I tell them it'll be great when you get here. When you get here, it's going to be great. So that's why we're here for you to pave the way to how great it will be. So
we can hand them our book that says don't paint black mascara on your roots of your hair. We'll give them tips and tricks to make it a little easier.
Yeah. No, definitely. So exactly. And sunscreen. Oh my God, guys. So if I could go back in time, that's another thing. If you could go back in time, the one thing I would be sunscreen on my face. For sure. Sunscreen. I mean, sunscreen. Yep. Sunscreen would have been the thing.
But remember back in the day, there wasn't the sunscreen. It was baby oil and
iodine.
Right. So
that oil.
Yeah. Remember that baby oil and iodine?
Yeah. That or baby oil in your spray bottle of water.
Yes, that too. Yeah, the baby oil, the spray water. I totally remember that laying in my yard with baby oil and iodine, and then coming out looking, like a bronze goddess. And I'm surprised that I didn't roast. I didn't turn into like a pot roast. Like
we were like wontons, literally.
Tanning beds are out. Beds are out.
Yeah, exactly. But that was some of the things that we did when we were younger. Oh my God. But sometimes I think to myself, I'm surprised that we're alive.
And here we are.
Here we are. 50 plus,
awesome.
Looking fabulous, even though we used iodine and baby oil, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, at least our sunburn was disinfected with the iodine.
There's the point. Or even with the water, you're cleaning it with the water.
Yeah.
Can't get out of bed because of your legs are so cramped up from the tightness of the burn, but you know, it's clean.
Oh my God. Andrea, I think you shared a story with me that was kind of funny too. But one of the questions were like, what are the physical or mental changes you have experienced during this phase of your life that you have found most humorous?
The physical, you just got to work harder. You just got to work so much harder at this age than you did. I mean, like what I did at 30, like I remember my sister used to always say, like, she's like, all you have to do is talk about dropping 30 pounds and it's gone. And I'm like, boy, I miss those days. So the physical part of it, definitely you got to try harder. But I mean, it's back to how much self-care, how, you know, this is not just your problem, it's everybody's problem this age. It's all of us as getting older. We have to try harder and take better care of ourselves and just give ourselves more grace. So physically, I definitely think that I gotta try a little harder. I gotta, like, you know, when those passengers bring all those goodies to me, some of it I gotta give away. It's hard. It's hard.
Well, you're better than I am.
It just depends. It depends on, you know.
I know somebody gave us chocolate yesterday and they said, this is for the flight. They gave us these really good and they give us really good chocolates. So they go, this is for the flight attendants and the pilot. Yeah, they go, and for the pilots too. Like, no, I'll take that. They won't even know.
What pilot? They'll never know.
Pilot. So we ate all the chocolate. But we share. I don't want them to think we don't share, but we do share. But sometimes we don't.
We do. But I think that's the physical part is that you just definitely, you have to work harder. But I think that you also have to, I also think that you have to, not just physically, but you mentally have to get a grip on all the things that are weighing you down, because that's preventing you from doing better, even physically. Yeah. And I talked about that earlier, like, you have to let it go. You have to take care of yourself. You have to love more. You have to forgive more. And you have to, you know, accept more too. You have to accept more of yourself. So, yeah.
I love your little, when we were talking on the phone the other day, you were telling me about your yoga story about like when you were in yoga and you had the scratches on your leg. We had this, and then yoga instructor asked you why you have scratches on your leg. Do you remember when we were talking about?
Oh, I was gonna say, were you talking to somebody else?
No, it was Andrea.
Oh, you guys, I tell you, sorry, that I do think this is like a very unstable connection, and I get the end of it. So I apologize for that. I'm in the dressing room at work, so I kind of hid. And but yes, so I was in a yoga class during. You got to find humor in everything. That's another thing. But I was in yoga class and I had went through chemo treatment, and you know, you don't have any hair. You don't have hair on your legs. You don't have hair anywhere on your body. I know this sounds horrible, but it's true. So I'm in yoga class with all these ladies, and I was one of the youngest ones in there. I mean, it was 15 years ago, but anyway, I was one of the younger ones in there, and I go in there and it's summertime, and the ladies are looking at me, and one lady says, "What is wrong with your leg? You have a Band-Aid on your leg because you're not supposed to get cut or anything during chemo because you could get infected and bleed and all that stuff." So I go, "Yeah, I was shaving." And everybody's like, "You're what? You don't have any hair." I go, "I shave my legs." And they're like, do you have hair?" And other people, and we all just laughed about it, because the fact is I wanted to be as normal and mind over matter as possible. So every time I took a shower, I shaved my legs. I did the same routine I did as if I never had cancer. Everything in my mind was like, I'm going to do this. So I cut myself. Just took a big gap out. It was horrible. And everybody was laughing, and it didn't hurt Nina. And I had to laugh too. And I'm like, who in the world? Everybody hates to shave their legs as women. People hate to shave all the time. But here I am with no hair, and I opt to shave. So I was like, girl, I'm like, it's okay. So yeah. So you got to find humor in it. That's the whole point. You got to find humor in the bad times, no matter what, to pick you up.
Absolutely.
That's a great story. I love that.
We had too much time on the jump seat.
Yes.
And then out for coffee and out after work.
We went out for dinner. We
got up and said, hey, you want to go to breakfast and get some mimosas? It was bad.
I feel like I missed out. Dang.
Yeah, Andrea and I spent, both days together. We went to dinner. Both nights. We had a great trip. We did have, and we had a great crew with us too. So that was what made it even. They were amazing. We have some of the best people with us, and then another thing what you find when you're on that jump seat is the aviation industry. There's so many synchronicities. I don't know what it is about being up in the air, but there's just so many synchronicities. You start talking, all of a sudden you're sitting on the jump seat, and then all of a sudden you turn to each other and you just let out all of these, just everything about you, and they tell you everything about them, and you find out that you guys just think, and you're like, oh my God, I love that too, and oh my God, yes, I love that too. Want to go out to dinner? Yes. It's one of the only places that you can meet someone for the very first time, and you just spend 2 days together and become the best of friends.
Yeah, definitely. We are family. There's no question about that. But
No
I always say we're misfits. We're in a land of misfit, but we fit.
Yeah, that's true.
I say that. I said, oh, come on. We're all misfits, but we just fit together. It's great. It is really good. We're very, very fortunate. And when we sit down and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, I just love your idea and what you're doing. And you guys are amazing. And Gina, I love your story and what that you've accomplished. We got to get together, definitely have a more opportunity to kind of go into my dreams on that, since you're way ahead of me on that, but for sure.
Because Andrea has ideas about writing a book, and she definitely wants
to.
Yeah. That's you have ideas. And when you were telling me, yes, and when you were telling me about it, I was like, oh my God, this is fabulous. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually the Writers Guild was having they were having a strike and everything months ago. And the guy that I had been working with, he had me go in and just make sure that I patented the title and stuff. So, it's a little messy, but it is a patent. So no one can take my title because it's sacred.
Great. That's so great. I love it.
Oh,
well, I can't wait to read your book or books if you got it.
I can't wait to read yours and work with you. It'll be fun. It'll be a great time.
That's amazing. Love it.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Andrea. So you said that you do coaching. Do you still do that? In your
really office? Do a lot. I mean, I've been flying more than anything, and I keep everything current. I keep everything, all my licensing together, because really I was just building myself up for retirement, or so I could quit flying more. So all of my credentials are just like my plan B. And when I got diagnosed, I was working in respiratory and working in the airline industry. And it was very hard on your body to do rounds one day and then, commute and do a trip. And it was very hard, but I keep all my credentials up. And I meet up with other respiratory therapists and coaches and keep it all there, and definitely ready to always land on my feet.
So if we have any listeners that are kind of interested in getting coaching from someone, where would you say would be the best place to go for that?
reach out to
Okay.
me. I'll make sure I give you all that information. I'm
Yeah,
definitely fine with that. No, I don't mind a bit.
sounds great. We'll put your
We can
links
put
in
something
the.
even, right, we can even put something up on our pages too, you
Mhm.
know, attached to Andrea's information, where to reach her if they, for coaching or
Yeah,
anything that they
Absolutely.
would like, or even
great.
just to reach out, you know, if she's okay with
Yeah,
that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't mind a bit. I mean,
yeah.
that's what we're here for. We're here for each other. And I
Yeah.
never mind. I can't tell you how many people I have in my phone. I'm like, can you just put what we talked about? Like, did we
Yeah.
talk about Kilimanjaro? Did we talk about traveling alone to Ireland? Was it, what did we talk about? Did we talk about breast cancer, health and wellness? So
Mhm.
I always tell people, like, after a trip, I'll have like 4 different numbers with no names, and I'll have to open them up and see what
Mhm.
it is, what the link is I'm supposed to get back.
Yep.
So that's what we do. That's what we do in our job. We meet
Yeah.
people, and we connect, and we network, and we enjoy it.
Love it.
Yes.
We
Yes. I agree. Yeah, you could. And the same thing, Andrea. It's so funny how you said that. I have a bunch of numbers, and then I just have like random notes, like in the text messages of like what we
Yes,
discussed, what we
that's what you
talked
have
about.
to do. That's
Yeah.
what you have to do. I'm like, can you just put what it was we talked about? Just put one word I usually know. Link. Well, you want the link of the podcast tonight. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the great thing about this job too is that you're exposed, you get to meet so many people. You get to meet so many coworkers. You could fly the, I mean, Andrew, you've been, you know, flying for so long. Sometimes you might not even fly with the same, you never again fly with the same person. It's just crazy how like, I don't want to say it's random. I feel like sometimes it's synchronicity too. But yeah, there's just so many of us, but you get to meet so many wonderful people, whether they're passengers or whether they're coworkers. And then, you know, they give you a suggestion or they give you a book suggestion or they say, hey, check out this website. And you just gather a wealth of information and
Yeah.
things like that just by
And
meeting so many different people.
Debbie, that's how I met that publisher out of Nashville when I was flying.
Yeah.
And we just got to talking, and I was up front. We got to talking and joking, and he actually, brought up a book, and I was like, oh, that's funny, I have a book. And when I told him the name, he just went nuts. And he's like, here's my card. And I'm like, oh, he's like, I got ghostwriters, we got this. And then the Writers Guild went on strike, and things were kind of crazy. And then again, we have dreams, we have things, and we put it on a back burner and we do something else. And so when Debbie and I started talking, just about this and women over 50 and dreams and can you do it and stuff, then she told me you wrote a book and published it. And so I was like, oh, that'd be great. We'll connect. And I don't know, you just can't give up your dream because of your age. You just keep going. Just keep
Yep.
going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, mine was in the works for over 25 years. I had my draft of my little titles for each story. So, and I carried that around with me. So, and I just kept, I kept putting it into the universe. One day I'm going to write my book. And finally, the connections that I needed, I don't think I was meant to write it back then.
Yeah.
I think I was meant to write it right when I wrote it. So, so I love that you're doing it. I'm so proud of you. But like even all the other stuff that you've talked about that you've overcome, the things that you've done with your life, I'm in such awe. And I do have to say I saw a picture of you with the waterfall and I can't say the word. It's the Tulumina, whatever falls in Oregon. But I went there, loved it.
Oh,
It was one of my favorite
yeah.
places. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. I try. I mean, it's part of health and wellness is getting out and getting into nature. And, when we get out and we get in nature, we kind of find out what we want because we get out of all that noise around us. And whatever it is, if it's not nature, whatever it is that gets you in a space where you can find you, I think that you need to anchor into that. I think
Yeah.
that needs to be your anchor. Nature is my anchor. I tell people all the time, like travel is my love language. I see that written everywhere. And I'm like, oh, travel is my love language. And I travel to be in nature most of the time. I hike everywhere, anywhere. And I mean, all the time. People hang out with me. I'm like, I would rather be hiking than drinking any day.
yeah.
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 Mhm.
It's
And
amazing.
priorities change too, like, like you said, like, what you just mentioned, that now, like, nature is your thing, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. Hmm. Love that.
I grew up in the country. It's always really been my thing, but it's been
Yeah.
a different way for me. It's
Yeah.
been, you get away from it for a while, like maybe in your 30s or something. You get away from
Right.
some stuff. Like you
Exactly.
develop this stuff when you're young. And I grew up Southern Ohio, outside of not far from Huntington, West Virginia. And it's rolling hills. It's not mountains, but it was mountains to a little girl. It was
Mhm.
mountains to a little girl. My mom had to find me off somewhere, for dinner. She's like, where is she at? And I'm always out walking, doing things,
Mhm.
even at a young age. So you kind of lose yourself when you get married, you have kids, you do stuff, you're too
Yeah.
busy and you lose yourself. And then you get a little bit older and you have a little space and a little thought, and you're like, what do I really like? And so you
Yep.
have to revisit that and you have to anchor there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's I said to Debbie last weekend. We were walking with our bare feet in the grass. I said, you know, do you remember doing this as a child? Or you'd lay down and look at the clouds for endless amount of time, trying to pick
Yeah.
out the pictures you see in the clouds. And I think, like you said, we get all the noise comes in when
Mhm.
we turn into adults, right?
Mm.
And we forget that connection with
Mhm.
nature.
Yep.
Yes, it's
Oh,
true. It's true.
well, thank you, Andrea, so much.
Of
So grateful to
course.
have
Thank
you
you.
with us.
You're the best.
I'm so glad we met. I'm so happy that we become friends. So I thank you again so much. Your wealth of knowledge, your wealth of inspiration. So grateful that you were able to share that with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. We really appreciate you being on our
Thanks for having
first
me.
guest. You're our first guest.
I told Debbie, I'm in, I'm in. I'm not a Zoom person. I'd rather be in person with you in setting. And I was flying and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I definitely rather be there with you guys, but I will at another time. And, anything I can do to fill the space between your
Mhm.
important people that you will have as guests, then you just call me up. I'm your girl. I'll be there
Thank you.
for you, Deb.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrea. I love you so much.
All
Mwah,
right.
mwah, mwah.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see you soon. Fly safe.
Definitely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.